Hey everyone, it's May, and welcome to another episode of The May Lee Show. Today's episode is actually a very special one. We are going to be highlighting heroes, local heroes who are doing phenomenal things in our community during this crisis. And these hero stories are brought to you by McDonald's today. McDonald's wants to really focus on these amazing individuals who are sacrificing so much to give back to the community in whatever way they can. And that's why we are calling them heroes in their own right. And especially during this month of Asian Pacific American Heritage, we're trying to highlight Asian Americans who are doing their part in exceptional ways. So I'm so excited to bring you these stories. The first one is Dr. Chen Fu. Now, he's a hospitalist who works at NYU Langone Medical Center. And he became a bit of a sort of a famous individual, all because he put out a video that he shot himself of a typical shift at the hospital. And he just shows us sort of a firsthand account of what a doctor goes through and the chaos and the heartbreak and the challenges and the fatigue. But he also showed us his personal side where he has a FaceTime chat with his parents, his Chinese parents. And it's just such a sweet moment. So we got a sense of a doctor from a medical perspective, but also a personal perspective. And I think that's why this video went so viral. And he was even recognized by Time magazine as a hero on the front line. So Dr. Fu joins me now from New York. Chen, hey, welcome to the show.
It's an absolute pleasure to be on.
Well, it's an honor to have you because as you just heard me say, this entire episode is dedicated to heroes of COVID-19. And you being a doctor on the front lines, I mean, you are the very definition of a hero. So thank you first and foremost for all the work and dedication that you've been putting in during this very difficult time.
Well, I really appreciate that, May. Thank you. That means a lot.
Well, listen, it's not just me. I mean, you were featured in Time magazine recently as, a hero of the front line. What an honor. But it kind of came about because you did a video, right, that went viral. And basically it was you just sort of showing us your typical day. And in fact, that video was night because you were on night shift at the hospital, right?
Yeah.
And it was just telling us like what you do to get ready, and you're going to the hospital, but then you're also FaceTiming with your parents. And it was so powerful because it was such an honest portrayal of what you're going through as a doctor, but as a human being, as an Asian American, all that. So tell me, were you surprised that video went so viral?
I was absolutely surprised.
Yeah.
I still feel a little bit undeserving of it.
No.
After that video came out, the response that I got was incredible and overwhelming. And I had a lot of people contact me telling me, a lot of Asian Americans and specifically Asian Americans in healthcare contact me telling me that they could relate, that this story was there for it. And I feel like it was a story that could have been told by so many different people.
Yeah.
And while it's such a privilege to be able to tell that story to some degree, I still feel very undeserving of it.
Okay, you're so humble, which is why you are. I just want to give you a hug if I could. But let's talk about why that resonated so much. First of all, clearly it's because people got a firsthand view of what doctors are going through, right? Going to the hospital, suiting up, and then, you're basically saying, I can't believe how many patients I'm seeing, and really telling us, what you're going through, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me how it's been from the start of COVID to now? Has it gotten better for you? Have you seen improvements? Tell me what the situation is like, what it was like then and now.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first started with this COVID pandemic, it was a gradual trickle of patients. We started out with about 5 or 6 patients. And I remember the early days when news of every new COVID patient was big news throughout the hospital.
Yeah.
Slowly got to be overwhelming and commonplace. We went very quickly from 5 patients to 400, and we had to open up new wards and new floors.
Right.
And in the midst of that, most of my colleagues and myself, we felt like we couldn't do it. We felt like we were on the losing end of a massive battle.
Yeah.
But the incredible thing was the surge of help that came to our aid, completely unasked for. We had doctors in the community, private practice physicians, surgeons who volunteered to be our interns in the ICU, who volunteered to work extra shifts for free.
Wow.
And these were people who were the very demographic of people who were at highest risk of severe COVID if they contracted the disease. It really reminded me of how during 9/11, you had this entire body of people who were running into the disaster.
Yep.
And those are the people that inspired me.
Right.
Through that combined effort of these humble souls and these heroic souls, of our fantastic nursing staff, of our janitorial staff, of our community of people who cheered with support every night at 7 p.m., who fed, clothed us, and helped us in our time of need, we're beginning to see a beautiful light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah.
We started closing down our COVID wards one by one and repurposing them back to what they were originally intended for.
Okay, that's great.
Performing urgent surgeries on people who need them. And we've started to see this beautiful vision of normalcy that we can get back to.
Wow. See, that is great to hear, because I think so many of us are inundated with horrible news every day, and these tragic numbers that are still going up in many places. So it's nice to hear that at least you as a doctor on the front lines, you're seeing at least some light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. There's tremendous goodness and there's tremendous hope in the air right now.
Wow. Tell me, though, I'm sure because you've been doing this for now a couple months, right, dealing with this virus that is still very unknown, right? And that seems to be the issue in all areas. There's so much unknown about this COVID-19. And so as a doctor, it must be difficult to deal with something that is so seemingly out of control in many ways. And that's psychologically for you. I want to know what you go through in terms of how has it affected you as a doctor, but also as a person?
That is a fantastic question. That's a really good question. And I think you hit the nail on the head, May. This disease was a plague of the unknown. And in the midst of that unknown, there was a lot of fear that sprouted from that soil.
Sure.
It wasn't just unknown in terms of symptomatology. It wasn't just unknown in terms of clinical presentation. When patients would come into the ED with a mild cough and then end up in a ventilator a couple hours later, that was an unknown that sprouted about a lot of fear. Yeah. But there was also an unknown in the wealth of scientific literature that was coming out.
Right.
One of the things that this disease and this plague has really highlighted is the unknown and the distrust of the information that even comes to light. That was a similar thing that happened in the medical community when at the height of this pandemic, we were inundated with literature and we were inundated with research that we weren't sure what to make of. We had certain studies telling us that drugs worked, certain studies that told us that they didn't.
Right.
We had studies that suggested that this patient population was most at risk, and certain studies that suggested that another population was at risk.
Yeah, and that's still happening.
That's still happening, exactly. Yeah. And it was up to us to determine the truth. And that's an incredible responsibility because the lives of millions rested upon the shoulders of our community as we had to wade through what was true and what was right.
And Chen, here's the thing. That's what people see you as. You're a doctor. You're supposed to know, right? You're supposed to be almost like omnipotent, all knowing. And that must be tremendous pressure to try to take on and then just be like, I don't really know.
I'm so glad that you recognize that. In the past, the unknown and light in the middle of the unknown created a sense of power in us.
Yeah.
Created a responsibility and a worth in us to be able to go up to a patient and say, I don't know what disease you have right now, but I'm going to see you through this and I'm going to figure it out.
Right.
As more information came to light about this disease, that unknown generated a lot of powerlessness in me personally, but also in a lot of my peers and colleagues. Walking up to a patient and saying something like, I know exactly what you have, but I'm not certain what to do about it. I'm not certain how you're going to come out on the other end. It's not a sensation that we're used to having.
Right.
And in some ways, that knowledge of which patients do poorly and which demographics are most at risk exacerbated that powerlessness a little.
Right.
Seeing young patients, good patients, who have their entire lives ahead of them, people who are no older than myself, seeing them suddenly drop in their oxygen saturations and gasp for air as if they were drowning.
Right.
Seeing these same patients ask, am I going to be okay? And not knowing how to respond. That was a sense of powerlessness that's difficult to rectify.
So Chen, let me ask you this then, as a doctor, but as a human being who obviously has emotion. Here's the thing I keep reminding people. Doctors and medical staff, they're people too. They're humans. They have emotions. They have feelings. And so this is going to affect them deeply when they're in it every single day. So let me ask you then, how have you been able to cope? How have you been able to get through each day when you're seeing something that you've never seen before, you're experiencing things you've never experienced before, and then you, again, have to deal with this unknown and powerlessness? How have you been coping? What have you been doing to try to get through?
Another fantastic question. I'm starting to see a trend. I personally find a lot of comfort in my faith. I spend time praying and I spend time in the middle of a community that I'm very fortunate and blessed to be a part of. One thing that this disease has made it difficult to do is dwell in the middle of a community. A lot of those coping mechanisms that we have normally, pre-COVID era, pre-pandemic, is being able to walk up to someone and feel embraced.
Right.
Is getting a sense of togetherness.
Yeah.
But one thing that we've been doing is, in the middle of craving togetherness, in the middle of craving warmth, we've found ways to achieve that without physical touch.
Yep. Very true.
And being able to find that for me personally has helped me cope a lot. Through things like Skype interviews and Skype calls, FaceTiming family.
Well, actually, in that video that went viral, you do FaceTime with your parents, who are so sweet. They were having dinner, right? And you're asking, oh, what are you eating, mom and dad? And they're like telling you and showing you, which I just thought was so sweet. And the most touching part is when, you know, your father was saying, you know, I was very proud of you when you got into medical school, and I was always proud of you, but now I feel like you're heroic. And that, I mean, honestly, I think I started like getting choked up when I watched that, just because your father was recognizing, you know, the sacrifice that you were making. I mean, they're worried, but they're beyond proud. They see you as a hero. How did that make you feel?
I kind of choked up a little bit afterwards.
I'm sure you did. Like, I'm thinking about it right now and getting a little bit choked up. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. My dad told me that if he had known that we were filming a video, he would have changed out of his pajamas.
That's great.
So that was his main. My father has lived an incredible life.
Yeah.
The stories that he can tell are immortal. That was a completely unscripted moment. And my father is a traditional immigrant father.
Yeah.
Who is not one to display emotion and is not one to say things like that.
Right.
And when he did, I was taken aback. I was very surprised. but also it meant just that much more.
Ugh. Yeah. I mean, look, we share the same experiences as Asians and having immigrant parents. And Asians traditionally, yeah, we're not, especially our parents' generation, they're not very expressive emotionally, right? They express their love and affection in very different ways. So when it's verbal like that, yeah, that's very serious and it's coming from a much deeper place, right?
It's very true. I can really relate to that.
Oh, totally. We could all relate to that as Asians, Well, speaking of being Asian, the other thing that you talked about in this video that I thought was very powerful was that, you are both celebrated and villainized at the same time. Because as we know, unfortunately, the downside of COVID has been this growing xenophobia against Asians, because people are trying to blame the Chinese and China. So I know that you had an incident on the subway where somebody threw racial slurs at you as you were on your way to work in your scrubs. So they clearly knew you were a frontline worker. And your mother, apparently her car was vandalized, and so were her friends, right? They've all been sharing experiences. So can you tell me a little bit about how you've been able to grapple with those two things? Because they're so opposing. There's such opposing kind of situations, aren't they?
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that, because a lot of the feedback that I've gotten after the video focused on that very statement. This idea of being both celebrated and villainized, this idea of a dual identity.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing about our community is that in many other diaspora communities in America as well, is that is such a pivotal defining feature of us. I'm sure you have probably had that experience of going back. Personally, for me, it would be going back to China and not feeling Chinese. And coming back to America and not feeling completely American either. In China, I am American. And in America, I am Chinese. Yeah. And nowhere am I fully accepted. We are a nomadic people. Our tribal identity lies within the tribe rather than our home place. Even in the best of times, that's true. And I think that dual identity is exacerbated in the middle of this pandemic, but it's something that many people have been able to relate to.
Yes.
As such, we as a people group have the responsibility of forging our own identity and moving forward in the middle of that. And in the many people I've talked to, and the many people I've shared experiences with and stories with, they're working so hard to forge an identity of kindness, helpfulness, in light of all of this.
Yeah.
To me, that's heroic. To me, that's powerful.
Yeah. I mean, Chen, I hope that what you're saying, just to kind of extend that, I hope that this virus is going to create a better world that's full of more compassion and kindness, where we look at each other not by the color of our skin or our background or our race. We look at each other as humans who all have the same needs, who all want the same things in their lives and for their loved ones and family members and friends, who all want to feel connected. And right now, because we don't have that physical connection, we're craving some sort of connection. And I really hope that one of the many silver linings that come out of this is that we do become more human.
Yes, I could not agree more. I think one concept that I've been exploring and has been this idea that all previous generations have been defined by the conflict they overcome.
Yeah.
How the World War II era and the greatest generation were the greatest because they overcame the greatest conflict. So I could not agree with you more, May. Yeah. I'm so interested to see how we come out of this and paint ourselves for subsequent generations, how we take our place in history.
Me too. Chen, let me ask you this, though. As you continue to do your work as a doctor, and as you continue to deal with this virus, how do you see this in terms of how we're dealing with it? I mean, are we on the right track? Do you see that this is going to slowly get better, or are you afraid when you see people going out, not wanting to wear masks, saying, this is not a problem. I'm going to live the way I want to. We've seen those protests, right? And we've seen frontline workers standing there with their arms crossed, with their masks on, in front of these protesters. And there's such powerful but shocking images, right? That this is actually happening. So when you see things like that, do you worry that we're not going in the right direction? I mean, tell me how you feel as a doctor when you see that and see that kind of behavior.
I do worry a little bit. I think many medical professionals feel when they see protests such as that, they feel as if they're being betrayed.
Yeah.
It's almost as if watching a potter create a beautiful pot and then seeing the customer destroy it right on the spot. But at the same time, I can understand where people are coming from. And I understand that feeling of isolation, that feeling of being constrained. And I do think it'll get better. I do think things will get better. In fact, I'm certain of it. And I think that in a couple years from now, when we talk to our children about this entire time and recount stories, they'll sort of look at us wide-eyed in wonder, not being able to imagine what this is like. And I think that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have a lot of stories to share. That's for sure. But before I let you go, let me ask you this then. Is there one particular memory thus far during this time for you that really stands out that you're going to keep with you, either because it was so powerful or so memorable or so moving? Something that, like you said, you will share with your kids and your grandkids at some point.
Yeah, actually, something just came to mind immediately when you asked that.
Okay.
At the height of this pandemic, I had the privilege of taking care of a colleague, a nurse down in the emergency room, who also used to be one of the alert response nurses that responded to critical emergencies. She herself had fallen ill with COVID. And knowing how patients progressed, knowing the time course of this disease, she was very scared. I remember seeing her in the middle of the night, holding her hand and adjusting her oxygen levels as she struggled to find words to say because she couldn't find the breaths to take. And I remember her saying in the middle of that, I gotta survive. I gotta see my son graduate from college. Well, the other week I saw her down in the emergency room working her normal shift, completely better. And she reached out and grabbed me and she thanked me. And we embraced, even though it probably wasn't the right thing to do. And she showed me a picture of her son's diploma frame hanging on the wall. And she said, thank you. You gave me hope. And in that moment, she gave me a lot of hope, really. That's a moment that I'll never forget. That's a moment that reminds me of why we do what we do. And out of all of the bad outcomes and all of the things that happened and all of the moments of powerlessness that I felt throughout this entire pandemic, that moment kind of made it worth it.
Okay, I can barely speak right now because I'm so moved by that story. That's why you do what you do, and those stories will keep you going and give so many people hope when they hear stories like that. So, I'm totally crying right now. I can't believe. You know what? I don't know how old you are, Chen, but you come off as such a wise, old soul or something. Honestly, I think that's why you must be such a good doctor, because there's this wisdom that's coming from somewhere much deeper that I feel. And so, no, really, I'm not just saying that to make you feel good. There's something that's very almost spiritual and so deep about you. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing and you've done and you will continue to do. You make us all proud. And I just can't thank you enough, honestly.
Well, thank you, May. I really appreciate that. That's incredibly encouraging to hear. And any wisdom that you might have heard was only spurred about by wise questions.
Oh, well, you're so sweet. But let me just wipe away a tear right now. And just thank you and stay safe, please. And I would love to stay in touch with you because you are honestly you're a wonderful soul. You really are. Your parents should absolutely be beyond proud of you in so many ways.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Right.
The
Okay.
same goes to you, truly.
Thank you.
True. You are a light in our community. And I
Thank
really
you. Thank you so much. All right. We'll keep in touch. All right.
I really hope so. I sincerely do.
Okay. I need to collect myself from that interview. It's people like Dr. Fu who are the true epitome of heroes because they're literally sacrificing their time, their energy for others, to help others. And that is the true definition of a hero. I'm so glad that he was able to share his experiences and tell some personal stories so that we can all really understand, what they're going through, but also what's happening with them too, because we should care about what's happening to them as well. Okay, well, now I'm going to move on to another hero story. And this involves 3 young women, all college students. They all go to Dartmouth. And they decided to fill a need that they recognized, which is that essential workers were in need of just basic supplies, not just, medical supplies, but also just household goods for different reasons, or toys for their kids who were left at home while they were working. So they decided to start this organization called Give Essential, and they're matching donations with these essential workers. And so, like I said, they're all college students who decided to get together and create this effort, which is amazing. And now they are all joining me. All 3 are joining me via Skype. Hey, ladies, how are you?
Good. Hi.
Good. We're good. How are you?
Good. Okay, I want you to each introduce yourselves and tell me where you are, because I'm not sure where you're coming from. Crystal, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Crystal Ann. I'm a recent graduate from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm an incoming medical student to Case Western School of Medicine. And I'm currently back home in New Jersey.
Okay. All right. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy. I am a senior at Dartmouth College. I'm studying economics and will be moving into New York this summer. I am currently in Princeton, New Jersey.
Okay. And Reen?
I'm Reen. I'm a sophomore at Dartmouth. Amy and I were roommates this past year. I study history and economics, and I'm from Hanover, New Hampshire.
Okay. So you guys are all on the East Coast then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Now, I got something wrong then in the intro that I just did about the 3 of you. I said you were all Dartmouth students, so that's not correct. Crystal, you are not. Case Western, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. So that's corrected. So I'm so excited to talk to the 3 of you because of what you started, this whole idea of connecting the needs of essential workers with just basic items that they may not be able to get themselves. So I don't know who came up with this idea. Who first thought of this?
That would be Reen and I.
Okay. So, well, Amy, tell me, how did you guys come up with this idea and when?
Yeah, so I'm a senior, and COVID started seriously ramping up when I came home for what was supposed to be my spring break. And I ended up spending a lot of time reading the news and just sending Reen a lot of articles back and forth about about essential workers and the dangers they're sort of forced to be in every day in order to keep the rest of society running.
Right.
We had taken a class called social entrepreneurship together in the winter, and the sort of point of the class was to learn about resource mismatches and how different businesses work to bridge these resource mismatches. So, for example, Airbnb takes advantage of the fact that there are people with extra rooms in their houses and people who need places to stay. So as I read more about these essential worker stories, I increasingly realized that a lot of the problems that they were facing were resource mismatches, where they had lacked access to COVID protection or cleaning supplies or kids' toys.
Right.
And these are items that I personally have at home and could easily
Which is so interesting because you kind of don't think about that. You don't think about these other items, right? We only think in terms of the frontline workers at hospitals. They just need medical supplies. But you thought beyond that. You thought, oh my gosh, they actually need basic stuff at home too, because some of them didn't even have time to go to the store, right? Or these supplies were out of stock of the stores as well. So Reen, when you guys decided, okay, this is some sort of need, how did the concept develop in terms of this donor match and, trying to get these supplies to these various workers?
Yeah. So as Amy and I were kind of looking into COVID and reading more about these articles, we noticed that a lot of COVID relief organizations were focused on medical workers and hospital frontline workers. And obviously those people are super important in keeping our communities healthy. But we also were a little... We wanted to help, like our local grocery store workers and our postal officers and the people who weren't always portrayed in the media as frontline heroes.
Right.
So as we realized that everything was kind of various examples of resource mismatches, we were thinking of, how can we best connect these communities that seem like they're so far apart from each other? And how can we connect them so that donors are able to help essential workers? And the idea for an online platform was inspired by what we had learned in our social entrepreneurship class. And I think as we were coming up with this idea, one of our mentors told us, community is out there. Sometimes it just needs a little bit of help finding each other. And by creating this online platform, I think we've been able to connect, essential workers from all 50 states, literally people from Alaska, Hawaii, South Carolina, everywhere. As well as connecting donors from all 50 states as well. So that's been very cool to see.
I love that your mentor said that, the community is out there. And that's so true. People are out there who want to help. They just don't maybe know how to help. They don't know what to do. They don't know what's needed. So you just took that concept of, people willing to help, and then you were able to put this on this platform where people actually can now go online and say, okay, I can donate this item. Okay, so Crystal, let's bring you into this. How did you become involved, and what have you now experienced after having started this together? I know that the interest has exploded, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So Amy and I are actually friends from high school. We were catching up a couple days, and we kind of remembered that we're actually probably each other's first friends from the town that we both moved to in middle school, because we met outside of a middle school orientation room. So that was really interesting. But basically, after everybody was forced home, them from Dartmouth, and I was on my gap year abroad in Asia, we returned back home to New Jersey, and Amy posted something on Facebook saying that they had just launched this website called Exemplify, and we're looking for volunteers to help out. So I reached out and was looking to help out in any way that I could. And, coming from the situation where I had been living in Asia for the past year and had been able to observe the escalation of the whole COVID situation, and then having flown back at the time at home with no school or work, I just had a lot of free time to really think about what was going on. And I had this really strong desire to do something to be able to help.
Right.
And especially with my connections to the medical field, I have medical school friends that are helping with contact tracing and COVID hotlines. And I have friends who are nurses who have already graduated and are actually, heroes fighting on the front lines. And personally, I was kind of sitting at home with this realization that I had no medical training currently. And I just felt at a loss at how to make a positive impact in the struggle that we're all in.
Right.
And I think that's something that a lot of people can identify with right now. It's this feeling that you want to help so bad, but you just don't know how to. Exactly what you were talking about. And I think that's the beauty and the utility of Give Essential, is that it provides a way, it empowers people like you and me who are stuck at home right now to be able to make a direct impact in an essential worker's life.
Right. Well, here's the thing, Crystal. Let me interrupt for 1 second, which is, it's one thing to say, yeah, I want to help, but I don't know what to do. And then that's the end of it, right? People usually don't take the next step. But you ladies, you didn't just take the next step of just saying, okay, I'm going to donate. You actually created this platform where you're literally bringing together, like you said, all 50 states now. You've heard from people from all 50 states in terms of people with needs, right? So tell me, let's go back to you, Amy. Tell me then, how does it actually work? Because I know that you basically take kind of applications, not really applications, but people write in to tell their stories about what they need and why, right? So that's kind of how you vet the people that you're going to donate to, right? Tell me who you're hearing from and some of the stories that you're hearing.
Yeah. So on our website, we have a form for essential workers. They tell us some information about who they are, where they're from, and then tell us what they need, whether that's kids' activities because they're parents who work odd hours and can't stay home to take care of their kids, who are now also home because school closures.
Right.
Or there are also pregnant mothers or pregnant women who are delivery drivers and have a lot of contact with people and stores and don't have cleaning supplies.
Yeah.
And so they fill out this form, tell us about who they are, what their needs are. They share their story with us. And we then connect them with donors. So we get this sort of Excel sheet with all of this information and connect them with donors that we think could best help them.
And are the donors then contacting you as well saying, listen, I want to be a donor. I have this list of supplies, or do they also say, what do you need? I mean, is it a combination of both?
So we have some featured stories on our website with some around 10 to 15 stories every week that we pick out, and donors can read this and sort of get an idea of what the needs are, what type of essential worker stories we have. And they can sign up and tell us what extra items they have or what they want to donate.
Okay. Hey, Reen, curious, since you guys started this, what has struck you the most about this experience so far? I'm sure some of it has to do with just sheer generosity, right? That sometimes surprises you that, wow, people really are generous and compassionate. So tell me personally, what have you learned and what has surprised you the most?
Yeah, I think definitely what you said about the generosity. We've seen donors give anywhere from just boxes of PPE to $200 gift cards. I recently saw a picture from an essential worker who received a fruit and vegetable platter type thing from a donor. And she wrote a note saying, she had just been working in the lab so much and eating the berries made her feel like alive and human again. And
oh, wow.
That one really broke my heart. So I think just seeing the generosity of the donors, but on the other side, I think reading hundreds of essential worker stories has really kind of opened me up to this feeling of invisibility that's been very prevalent among essential workers. We've received a lot of comments that are just like, thank you so much for recognizing us and for providing the service. And I think what we're doing is, at its core, it's very simple. It's just a way for donors to kind of do an act of kindness toward essential workers. I think in doing so, it just means that these people are being recognized for their work. And for me, that's been like very important in, just reading hundreds of these stories and being able to like share them and raising awareness that there are essential workers, there are frontline workers who, don't work in hospitals.
Right. No. And I think that is and look, my dog keeps on coming, into the shop because she's so proud of what you guys are doing. So just so you know, that's why she keeps on coming to the shop. But it's true. I think what has come out of this crisis is the appreciation that we never had for these workers who, like you said, may have been invisible before, working at the grocery store, delivering your package, delivering your mail. And the fact that you now are recognizing them for their efforts and really providing the service. I mean, I have to give you credit. I don't think anybody would have really thought about their needs beyond what we heard about on the news, medical supplies, right? Masks, the PPEs, but you're providing basic things, even toy. I mean, when I read that you were even donating toys to some of their kids because they're at home and they're bored and they just want to play a game, right? That to me is incredible because you would have never thought about that. So, Crystal, I'm curious then, you are about to go to medical school. So I'm sure now your perspective on that has maybe been elevated, changed. Are you more motivated? Are you more inspired? Tell me how this has all changed you.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely put how I view my medical education in a very different light. I think it means a lot more to me right now. I feel like the rest of my classmates, like incoming students into medical school, I feel like everyone can hear the calling right now. And there's such a huge need right now.
Yeah.
And I think we all realize that we're about to join a field of heroes. Like absolutely every single person in the medical field right now is a hero. And every time I read an article about a frontline health worker's story, it honestly gets me emotional because I realize just the amount of sacrifice that they're putting into the situation to help the rest of our communities. So it definitely has motivated me beyond words to, pursue medical education. And I just got an email from my medical school admissions committee that we're set to start according to date in July. So, definitely super, super excited to go down that road.
Yay. Congratulations. Wow. Okay. I have a feeling you're going to make a very good doctor. So,
Thank you.
Amy, there's a dark side of what's been going on with this virus, and it affects the Asian community. We all know that it's been a rough time for Asian Americans as well as Asians around the world because of the racism, the xenophobia caused by the virus. And so when I see, especially young Asians like you guys, giving back in the face of difficulty, not just the health crisis, but also the xenophobia that we've all been hearing about, it makes me very proud that you're willing to step forward, not cower, not sort of stay in hiding and protect yourselves, but you're willing to give back and actually exemplify what our community represents and really show the world that you are part of the community, you care, and this is what you're willing to do. So tell me, how has that ever come to mind for you, Amy, that there is this sort of the dichotomy going on with this crisis and in what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. I think that this was something that, especially at the beginning, I was a bit concerned about. During the beginning of April, I just remember reading a lot about how there's been several 100% increase of racism attacks against Asians on social media. And one of my close friends actually had been going on a run somewhere in Virginia, and a group of boys pulled up next to her and just yelled at her to go home and go back to where you came from.
Yeah.
So that was definitely weighing on my mind when we first started. But I think that the response to this project from all communities, and especially the Asian American community, has been incredibly heartwarming today. So we've been starting efforts to reach out to more essential worker communities. And one of these aspects is through local politicians. And I was contacting several local politicians in New York City. And one of the women who responded to me was sort of an Asian American leader in her community. And she was like, "Oh, I want to connect you to all these Chinatown businesses. I really want to help you guys." And I think that sort of response has been really heartwarming and really incredible.
That's great. That's great. So you're being recognized for your work. Reen, how about you? Did you have those thoughts as well in terms of, the dark side versus, putting some light out there as you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think pretty much echoing what Amy said. At first, we were a little bit worried about how some people might react to our site because a lot of our outreach was done on social media. And we were worried that, maybe we would get some comments. I think it's been interesting to see how some of the comments on our sort of press and media posts have not directly been about us being Asian American, but there were some comments about how Asian Americans and like this being like the Chinese virus and whatnot. But I think overall the response has been incredibly positive. Like Amy said, I or like Amy did, I was also able to reach out to some of my local politicians. One of my senators actually posted about us on her like social media today, which is very cool. And it's been very, I think there's been more light than darkness. Yeah. If I can say that.
No, absolutely. I think that's perfect, because I think what we realize is there are a lot more good people than there are bad people in the world. And sometimes it takes a crisis for that goodness to come out and outshine the dark. The dark is there, right? But if you shine the light like the three of you are through this effort, people are going to notice, and people are noticing, and you are making a difference, which is so phenomenal. And to be just college students, I mean, Crystal, you're obviously about to go to medical school, but you guys are still young. You know, you could just be hanging out and just doing nothing, be like, woohoo, you know, I'm on break and I'm just not going to do anything, right? Which I'm seeing that too with the young generation. But it makes me, it inspires me and gives me such hope when I see young people like you recognizing something, a need, and taking action. Really, it's so phenomenal. So I hope you're going to continue to get the accolades for what you're doing, and you know, getting what you need. So let's talk about how people can help, because I want to get that information out to them. Oh, there goes I don't know why my dog is so excited. I think she's very excited about this effort on your part. So tell me, whoever wants to jump in, tell me exactly what people can do, where to go. And I know you also have a GoFundMe page. So let's cover all of that so people have that information. Whoever wants to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's many different ways to get involved and help out with Give Essential. All of them can be accessed through our website, giveessential.org. You can sign up as a donor if you have extra household items lying around at home that you'd like to share with an essential worker. Or if you don't have anything to share right now, that's okay. If you can just, you know, share the word about us with social media or with essential workers that may benefit from our platform, that's fantastic as well. Like you said, we have a GoFundMe page, which is accessible on our website if you'd like to give more of a monetary donation. And then also we're looking to recruit more volunteers right now to help out with facilitating our matches. So, yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you guys can add? Reen or Amy, any other information that people need to know?
Yeah. So our volunteers, do a kind of a wide array of things. I think the majority of our volunteers are the ones who help facilitate the matches, which means they receive a case or a match, and they work to make sure that the donor and the essential worker are able to make the package delivery to the essential worker. But we also have some volunteers who are helping us with other things, such as our operations. Some people who have expertise in that area have been very helpful. I think currently we're also looking for people with coding experience. Maybe Amy can talk about this a little bit more, with coding experience to help us redesign our website. But volunteers can really, helping with the matches is how we've run Give Essential. Like, our platform wouldn't be possible without our volunteers, but volunteers can also help in other ways.
Okay. And Amy, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. So in terms of the website, so currently we're looking for some people to help with the maintenance of the website, and we're also trying to make the donor and essential worker experience a little more streamlined and automated, so that it's a quicker process and we can reach out to more people. So anyone who wants to help with that aspect we'd love to work with them.
Okay, great. Shout out to people who, have some coding experience and can help out with that website. I mean, I think your website looks terrific, by the way, but what do I know? I don't know how to code. But listen, I'm so glad I was able to talk to the three of you, especially for this episode that is all about hero stories. You might not want that title, but you got it. You guys are all heroes. You're doing amazing work, and it gives my heart. It warms my heart that knowing that young people like you are willing to step up when you're needed like this. So thank you so much, ladies. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Good luck. And we will certainly spread the word about the work that you're doing. And if we can help in any other way, you give me a call. All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay. So if I had daughters, I would want those three as my daughters. what amazingly inspiring young people, right? They have this heart of giving and compassion. And so definitely heroes in my book. You go, girls. All right, let's go to our next hero story. And this person comes from the medical, but also research scientific background. Dr. Francis Duhay. He is the CEO of Kahala Biosciences. And he was a heart surgeon. He saved many lives through his work, but he wanted to do something more to help the community on a broader scale. And then, of course, COVID hit. And that's when Kahala Biosciences went into high gear. They wanted to try and bring more tests for the virus to the States. They wanted to develop antibody tests, antigen tests. But also what's fascinating is they wanted to use technology to try and ramp up not only testing, but also tracking and make it easy for the individual to test at home and be able to monitor themselves at home using their own smartphone. So this is a combination of technology and medicine, healthcare. So it's fascinating. So Dr. Duhay is joining me now from the Kahala Biosciences offices down in Irvine, California. Dr. Duhay, welcome to the show. So glad to see you.
Thank you for having me, May. It's my pleasure.
Well, listen, we are doing the show because we're trying to focus on heroes in our community during this crisis. And I really wanted to talk to someone like you, who is a doctor, researcher, scientist, who's on the cutting edge of trying to develop different tests and different ways of tracking this virus. And in fact, on your website, you talk about this, process that you're developing where you want to be able to track people, right, and do the contact tracing. Because it says on your website, which I'm going to read, it says the sole purpose of empowering employers to bring their employees safely back to work by providing an end-to-end solution that facilitates rapid diagnostic testing for employees. But also you're developing software to be able to do the contact tracing as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so this is a very tricky, and so our focus was how to get people back reintegrated to the workplace again. And we felt that, many people look at their work as it defines them.
Yeah.
And so this is not a very simple matter. And one of the first things that we focused on was there were issues with a number of the tests, primarily in Europe, that were coming from other countries. And there was concern that the tests were not performing as good as billed. And let's put it that way. And so we began to search about ways that we could actually confirm or at least verify the authenticity of the test. We felt that if we were the user, if we were the person, I would like to be confident that the test that I'm using is in fact a perfectly valid test that comes from a verified manufacturer. So this led me down a path of ways that we actually can do that. We looked at several different companies that were in the space of what we call pharmaceutical supply chain verification. Okay, and so these were primarily companies that had experience overseas in emerging economies where diseases like hepatitis C were rampant. There was a treatment for hepatitis C, 90% effective, yet a lot of the drugs flooding the market were fakes. And so using this kind of technology, manufacturers of these drugs could put a QR code on the box at the moment of manufacture, and then these systems would then track these drugs over the product life cycle. So that if I were the user with hepatitis C, I could scan that box and be satisfied that this in fact was an authentic product. Well, the company that we partnered with is a company called Remedy from Greenville, South Carolina. It was very natural for them to then go into the diagnostic space because there are diagnostic tests. Those two are fake. And it is amazing, May, what I hear about in other continents, say in Africa, where some of these tests are complete fakes.
Oh, boy.
So similarly, this company would put a QR code on those and provide comfort to these patients that in fact the diagnostic tests they were using were fake. Well, it turned out, and in this specific use case I'm describing was in Mongolia, where there is a lot of hepatitis C, that if you know where the drug is, if you know where the test is, you can actually track the disease. The company created elaborate heat maps of parts of Mongolia where you could identify where all the people with hep C were. Get us thinking perhaps we could actually identify where the COVID is without necessarily invading their privacy the way that GPS actually does.
Right.
I think most of us believe that GPS probably would be the ideal way to do contact tracing, but we in the US don't want state-sanctioned GPS. Okay, although they use that type of technology in other parts of the world, as Americans, that's not something that we necessarily will buy into.
Yep.
We want to have a say, before something that is implemented. And so we partnered with this company, Remedy, really around ensuring supply chain to ensure our patients that they are getting authentic products that we have actually verified. Next was the issue around privacy and security. We wanted to make sure that the information of their test results went nowhere unless they wanted it to. Okay? And as we know, many of these people wanted this information to get back to work, and so they could share that information if they wanted to their employer, for example. Okay? Finally, to sort of help with this concept of an end-to-end solution, we felt that there needed to be a way for the individual to be able to test themselves.
Yes.
In other words, having the type of practice that we've conducted heretofore, where people would have to go to see a physician to do this or some other setting, would not be practical.
Yep.
When you're trying to get 309 million people back into the workplace or in school. And that if they could do it themselves, then that would be probably the A answer, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so to do that, we required optical character recognition technology along with machine learning. So the tests that I'm speaking about specifically aren't those that are being conducted in CLIA laboratories per se, but rather what we call lateral flow assays. Lateral flow assays are things like a pregnancy test. A pregnancy test over the counter, you can use it yourself, you can interpret the result yourself. It's intuitive and very convenient for you.
Yep.
Well, you do that with antibody testing and viral testing. And so that is the nature of our application to FDA for emergency use authorization. Is we have developed a way for your smartphone, regardless of your operating system. And smartphone today, they all have cameras.
Yep.
And it turns out those cameras are more than adequate to capture an image of the test. That information goes to the cloud, and the result is then returned to that person within minutes. Now you have verification of the test, and so now you have verification of the result. And so that person is then certified that that test is negative.
Honestly, yeah, Dr. Duhigg, this sounds like it could be a game changer then, because it is the end-to-end sort of process, and it sort of sounds quite easy once people can do it from home using, like you said, their smartphone to be able to get these results. So this is, if please correct me if I'm wrong. This is a way that people can continue to track their health with this virus so that they're able to rejoin the workforce, go back to work and do it safely.
Right. So although I'm encouraged with the progress that we've been making, there's still some things that we need to achieve to be truly end-to-end. So earlier, you and I had discussed around the surge phase need for viral testing.
Yeah.
Viral testing is very, very important. And so what we need to do is fold in we call it an antigen test. So when you have a virus, the way that your immune system is triggered that a virus is present is through what we call antigens. So there are peculiarities of that virus that allow your immune system to tell the difference between foreign invader and not a foreign invader.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we call these antigens. And so we are looking actively for tests that can be similar to a pregnancy test, but not looking at antibodies, but actually looking for the virus itself. Okay, so that's one area that we have tremendous interest in identifying, because then we can marry that test to the smartphone as well. So now you can measure virus, you can measure antibody, all through the convenience of your smartphone. Now, one of the nuances there, May, is that if you were to get tested, whether it's through a drive-through at a CLIA laboratory or in a clinic setting, what do you see? Well, typically you see someone who's wearing a gown, a mask, eye cover, gloves. Okay, they do your test. Next person comes up, they change their gloves, put on new gloves. Periodically, they will change their gown, their head cover, their mask.
And that's been an issue in the past.
And that is an issue. We are hopeful that fades away if you can test yourself at home.
Right.
Okay.
Again, that would be a game changer. It really would be.
And the other element to an end-to-end solution is we appreciate the importance of your symptoms. And so the CDC has done a wonderful job listing out 20 different symptoms that are associated with COVID-19. They ask that you do I call it a symptom inventory on a daily basis. So the moment you wake up, you run through all the symptoms, you check no or yes, and it then decides, or it gives you an information around whether or not you should be able to go back to work. And what we have done is essentially taken that list. Now, each of those symptoms are not equally important. Some are more important than others. Say fever is a much, much more important symptom to have.
Right.
And so we can weigh them based on how important they are and score it. So if you check fever, let's say you earn 20 points because of that, and out of 100 point possible. Okay. In this case, the points are bad, but your occupation, let's say you work in a nursing home where you are patient facing. And so if you harbor COVID, they don't want to take a risk of putting you in front of patients. So they may set a very low bar and say, okay, if you score more than 5 points, then you need to be isolated at home.
Right.
Okay. So this is a very important screening tool in identifying symptomatic patients.
Right.
And so if you are now working and you wake up in the morning and say, wow, I don't feel too well, you do the symptom inventory and it turns out your aggregate number of points is, say, 30 or 40. You're above that 5-point level. The smartphone tells you can't go to work. It will not certify you.
Okay.
And it may say you now need to take a viral test. Again, in the future, we hope to have a viral test that's married to the smartphone. You can just take the box out of your medicine cabinet and go ahead and take that test.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so once that's achieved, then we have a viral test, an antibody test, way to monitor your symptoms, all in one handy device that many people have. That is the end-to-end solution that we're seeking. So we are not there yet, man.
I was just going to ask you, what kind of time frame are we looking at? Do you have any idea?
It should be, well, I don't want to overspeak here, but we're hopeful in 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, that's not very long.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were about to say like by next year or something, because that's what we hear about a vaccine. But okay, so that's really soon.
Well, we're helped by the fact that I believe government has really focused on this. So, for example, the National Institutes of Health has a specific project on what they call point-of-care diagnostics. And what I love about this project is it's not only the science, but it's also the business aspect of it as well. In other words, yes, they're interested in your solution, but they want to know, can you scale?
Yes. If you can't scale, then this is all meaningless.
Exactly. And they put their money behind this and say, okay, how much will it cost you to scale?
Got it.
And what resources, what areas of expertise? Because many of the solutions, let's face it, they come from scientists in ivory towers.
Yeah.
Where scaling is, I'm not even sure they know what that means.
Right.
But they have a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of this project through the NIH is they can identify those ideas based on the science, but then provide that back-end support to actually commercialize it and manufacture it at scale.
Right. You got to have that combination. Yeah, for sure. Dr. Duhey, before I let you go, I want to ask you a personal question, only because, we've talked all about the science and the testing and, the medical issues that we face with this crisis, but you have your entire life dedicated yourself to medicine, research, science. And I'm just curious, what is it in you that makes you want to pursue these solutions? Because you don't have to, right? You could have easily just sort of done your thing as a doctor and a researcher for other reasons. But what is it about this crisis that made you want to get so involved and develop some solutions?
Boy, that's a great question, Mary. So as you know, I began my career as a heart surgeon. Most heart surgeons will do 2 to 3 operations a day. If you do the math, that comes out to about 15 to 20,000 operations in one's lifetime, professional career. And I sort of felt at a very early age that if my tombstone read, "Herein lies a surgeon who saved 50 to 20,000 lives," I would have considered my life an abject failure.
Really?
That I needed to find a way to be able to scale that. Okay? And I discovered through my career, there are 3 major ways that one could do that. One is through research. If you found the cure for cancer, holy cow.
Yeah.
The other is actually through advocacy. And so by working through groups, and for myself as a heart surgeon, I've spent many decades working for the American Heart Association, banning smoking in public places and the workplace. 750,000 lives saved a year. Okay. Another sort of way to actually do that. The third way is through industry and be able to work through business to then commercialize your technology. The greatest ideas in the world will go nowhere if you can't partner with industry to make that a reality. And so having these experiences, these very rich experiences, have put me in front of many, many people in each of these areas. And I think partly because of my personality and having these deep beliefs about trying to help people at the end of the day, I've been able to leverage all of these relationships to where we are today.
But obviously your dedication is there and your commitment. And that's why you're doing exactly what you're doing. And it's almost as if you have a calling. I think in life, those of us who are fortunate enough to find a calling, we have to pursue that regardless. And that's it's like a mission, that you have in life. And it's so good to see someone like you take your skills, your experience, and apply it to something that is truly a crisis, but hopefully you are finding solutions that, on your tombstone, maybe it's not going to say 15 to 20,000. It might say hundreds of millions, so wouldn't that be incredible? Dr. Duhey, I wish I could talk to you further about everything, but like you said, it's sort of, as you're rolling it out, things continue to change. So I would love to continue to get updates from you. But as this episode's theme has been, right, hero stories. And that's why we consider you someone who is a hero on the scientific research front that hopefully will be successful in this pursuit. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you very much for your kind words, man. Thank your viewers. Stay safe.
Yes, you too. Take care.
You too.
Well, that technology that they're working on is pretty amazing. And the fact that they, like so many other researchers and scientists, are trying to fast track everything so that we can all, be able to get back to work, get the country going again, but also stay healthy. So kudos to Dr. Duhey and his company. And kudos to everyone in this show. I mean, talk about amazing stories, amazing individuals. And thank you to McDonald's for bringing us these hero stories today in this very special episode to celebrate people who are in our community doing heroic work and really coming together to support each other. So thank you guys for listening and watching to this special episode. And also, I want to invite you to a live stream on May 30th. It's a concert event. It's called Identity. And we'll be honoring more heroes during that event. So hopefully you guys will tune into that. All right. Okay. Well, until next time, please, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and help each other out. Okay. Be a hero to somebody else. All right. Bye-bye.